Hi, room 72. It's me again, Mrs. Mayorga. This is day 2 of our reading of holes. Yesterday, Zero and Stanley made the decision not to return to Camp Green Lake and instead to go see what Big Thumb held for them. Remember, Stanley's great-grandfather said he found refuge on God's thumb. And we remember that refuge means, let me hear it, everybody. Safety. Good job. Thanks for tuning in. I love your comments. It's making my day. And now let's go to day 2 as Zero and Stanley try to make it to Big Thumb. Here we go. Zero used the shovel as a third leg. 2 legs weren't enough to keep him up. I got to stop and rest, he said after a while. Stanley looked at Big Thumb. It still didn't look any closer. He was afraid if Zero stopped, he might never get started again. We're almost there, he said. He wondered which was closer, Camp Green Lake or Big Thumb. I really have to sit down. Just see if you can go a little. Zero collapsed. The shovel stayed up a fraction of a second longer, perfectly balanced on the tip of the blade. Then it fell next to him. Zero knelt, bent over with his head on the ground. Stanley could hear a very low moaning sound coming from him. He looked at the shovel and couldn't help but think that he might need it to dig a grave. Zero's last hole. Remember, part 2 was titled The Last Hole. Is this what that means? I wonder. And who will dig a grave for me, he thought. But Zero did get up, once again flashing thumbs up. Give me some words, he said weakly. It took Stanley a few seconds to realize what he meant. Then he smiled and said, R-U-N. Zero sounded it out to himself. Run, run, run. Good. F-U-N. Fun. The spelling seemed to help Zero. It gave him something to concentrate on besides his pain and weakness. And this is a good life lesson for all of us. When we're feeling kind of down and sad, get busy, do something. Make some brownies, make some pancakes, clean your room, take the dog for a walk, do something, and that will distract you so that you don't feel sad. Good message from the author there to all of us. It distracted Stanley as well. The next time he looked up at Big Thumb, it really did seem closer. They quit spelling words when it hurt too much to talk. Stanley's throat was dry. Remember, he hasn't had anything but that little sploosh in the last 24 hours. He was weak and exhausted, yet as bad as he felt, he knew that Zero felt 10 times worse. As long as Zero could keep going, he could keep going too. It was possible, he thought, he hoped, that he didn't get any of the bad bacteria. Zero hadn't been able to unscrew the lid. Maybe the bad germs couldn't get in either. Maybe the bacteria were only in the jars which opened easily, the ones he was now carrying in his sack. That's true, bacteria travels through the air, and if those had no air were getting into that one jar, maybe he didn't get the bad bacteria. What scared Stanley the most about dying wasn't his actual death. He figured he could handle the pain. It wouldn't be much worse than what he felt now. In fact, maybe at the moment of his death, he would be too weak to feel pain. Death would be a relief. What worried him the most was the thought of his parents not knowing what happened to him, not knowing whether he was dead or alive. He hated to imagine what it would be like for his mother and father, day after day, month after month, not knowing, living on false hope. For him, at least it would be over. For his parents, the pain would never end. Just like your parents, Stanley's parents love you so much. He wondered if the warden would send out a search party to look for him. It didn't seem likely. She didn't send anyone to look for Zero, but no one cared about Zero. They simply destroyed his files. But Stanley had a family. She couldn't pretend he was never there. He wondered what she would tell them and when. What do you think's up there? Zero asked. Stanley looked to the top of Big Thumb. Oh, probably an Italian restaurant, he said. Zero managed to laugh. I think I'll get a pepperoni pizza and a large root beer, said Stanley. I want an ice cream sundae, said Zero, with nuts and whipped cream and bananas and hot fudge. The sun was almost directly in front of them, the thumb pointed up toward it. They came to the end of the lake. Huge white stone cliffs rose up before them. Unlike the eastern shore where Camp Green Lake was situated, the western shore did not slope down gradually. It was as if they had been walking across the flat bottom of a giant frying pan, and now they had to somehow climb up out of it. Okay, so cliffs are made out of rock, and they sometimes go straight up, almost like the boys were walking along the floor and had to try to climb up the wall. Instead of just gradually up mountain path, they have to somehow get up this giant rock wall. And of course, they're not very strong right now. I don't know how they're going to do it. They might need magic. They could no longer see Big Thumb. The cliffs blocked their view. The cliffs also blocked out the sun, which is a good thing. Zero groaned and clutched his stomach, but he remained standing. I'm all right, he whispered. Stanley saw a rut about a foot wide and 6 inches deep running down a cliff. On either side of the rut were a series of ledges. Let's try there, he said. So on this rock wall, there were some little ledges that they could put their foot on, at least part of the way. Let's see what happens. It looked to be about a 50-foot climb straight up. Stanley still managed to hold the sack of jars in his left hand as he slowly moved up from ledge to ledge, crisscrossing the rut. At times, he had to use the side of the rut for support in order to make it to the next ledge. So a rut is just an indentation in the rock. Zero stayed with him somehow. His frail, what does that mean, Amelia? Does it mean weak? Yes, that's right. Jaden and Jordan, you rock. His frail body trembled terribly as he climbed the stone wall. Some of the ledges were wide enough to sit on. Others stuck out no more than a few inches, just enough for a quick step. Stanley stopped about 2/3 of the way up on a fairly wide ledge. Zero came up alongside him. You okay? Stanley asked. Zero gave the thumbs up sign. Stanley did the same. He looked above him. He wasn't sure how he'd get to the next ledge. It was 3 or 4 feet above his head, and he didn't see any footholds. He was afraid to look down. So imagine, guys, that I am trying to climb, and I have to put my foot up there where the ceiling is. That's where the next ledge is. How do I do that? Thoughts, ideas? What do you think? Let's think. How can I get my foot up there? Okay, what are they gonna do, boys? Are they gonna give up? No, says Manny. No, says Smith. Let's see. Give me a boost, says Zero. Then I'll pull you up with the shovel. You won't be able to pull me up, said Stanley. Yes, I will, said Zero. So why didn't they boost up Stanley? He could pull up Zero. Thoughts, Lily? What do you say? Jennifer? What do you think? Really? Thoughts? Yes, I think you're right. Stanley's too heavy. Zero can't give him a boost. But Zero's so light, he could boost him right up there. But then the plan is that Zero's gonna hold the shovel out and pull Stanley up. Is he strong enough for that? He's so sick and frail, which means weak, delicate. Let's see. Stanley cupped his hands together and Zero stepped on his interwoven, like this, fingers. He was able to lift Zero high enough for him to grab the protruding slab of rock. Stanley continued to help him from below as Zero pulled himself onto the ledge. While Zero was getting himself situated up there, Stanley attached the sack to the shovel by poking a hole through the burlap. He held it up to Zero. Zero first grabbed hold of the sack, then the shovel. He set the shovel so that half the blade was supported the rock slab. by the rock slab. The wooden shaft hung down toward Stanley. Okay, he said, so here's the ledge, here's the shovel, and he's holding the handle of the shovel here for Stanley to grab onto. Then he's going to pull him up over this ledge. Okay, he said. Stanley doubted this would work. It was one thing for him to lift Zero, who was half his weight. It was quite another for Zero to try to pull him up. Stanley grabbed hold of the shovel as he climbed up the rock wall, using the sides of the rut to help support him. His hands moved one over the other up the shaft of the shovel. He felt Zero's hand clasp his wrist. He let go of the shaft with one hand and grabbed the top of the ledge. He gathered his strength and for a brief second seemed to defy gravity as he took a quick step up the wall and, with Zero's help, pulled himself the rest of the way over the ledge. He caught his breath. There was no way he could have done that a few months ago. He noticed a large spot of blood on his wrist. It took him a moment to realize that it was Zero's blood. Zero had deep gashes in both hands. He had held on to the metal blade of the shovel, keeping it in place as Stanley climbed. Zero brought his hands to his mouth and sucked up his blood. One of the glass jars had broken in the sack. They decided to save the pieces. They might need to make a knife or something. They rested briefly, then continued on up. It was a fairly easy climb the rest of the way. Let's take a break here for a second, because I have a little friend I want you to meet. His name is Oliver. Oliver! Come here, Oliver.
Oliver, treat time.
Allison's going to see if Oliver will
Hi,
dance
everybody.
for a milk bone.
He's ready to put on a little performance for
Let's
you guys.
see. Oliver!
Come on, Oliver.
Cookies, Oliver.
Ozzy,
Oh,
too.
Ozzy.
I have one for
Spin,
him, too.
spin, Oliver, spin,
Good boy.
yay! Did you see him spin, everybody? Okay, there you go.
And Ozzy, sit. Good boy.
Shake hands.
Shake.
Shake. Good boy.
Good.
Other hand. Other hand. No, the other hand. Good boy.
And then lay down, his last trick.
lay
too.
down. Lay
down.
He's old. There he is.
Good boy.
And throw
And here you
it.
go.
Now, you can see Oliver's eating in his little bed right here.
Oh, he's wagging his tail for all of you guys.
And
He's saying
remember, I
hello.
found Oliver at Edmondson Elementary School. He was in between my classroom and Mrs. Aguirre's classroom in the crack. You know, the crack where some of you throw trash, which you should not do. Anyways, about 4 years ago, the kids told me, Mrs. Mayorga, there's a puppy in there. And I thought, a puppy? No way. And I looked and I saw glowing eyes and I thought, what is it? A puppy, a rat, a raccoon, a possum? And I reached in there and I pulled Oliver out. And he was so pathetic and skinny and oh, it was so sad. I thought he was really old. I brought him home, took him to the vet. The vet told me he was only 7 months old, but he looked like an old man. And he's been with us ever since for 4 years. He's our lucky little dog that we love.
Yes, he has the cutest little personality ever with goat hair, too.
Yes, it's not very soft. It's like a coat.
It's a little goat.
And you can make a mohawk.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's see us make a mohawk on Oliver here. There we go.
He's very stylish.
Okay, let's just read a little more for today.
Ozzy's ready to tune in again, right,
Ozzy's
boy?
ready.
We've got your
Oliver.
audience here.
Come on, Oliver. Come up, up.
Yay! We got that jump on tape.
Okay, here we go. So they made it up the cliff. Now they have to make it up the mountain. When they reached flat ground, Stanley looked up to see the sun, a fiery ball balancing on top of Big Thumb. Dot was twirling a basketball. Soon they were walking in the long, thin shadow of the thumb. Chapter 37. We're almost there, said Stanley. He could see the base of the mountain. Now that they really were almost there, it scared him. Big Thumb was his only hope. If there was no water, no refuge, then they'd have nothing, not even hope. There was no place.
Excuse me, Ozzy.
Ozzy,
Quiet.
quiet. Oh,
That happens a lot here in the Mayorga household, but it's okay. Good. Ozzy, stop
Ozzy.
it. Ozzy, come. Stop.
Okay.
It's okay.
If there was no water, no refuge, then they'd have nothing, not even hope. There was no exact place where the flat land stopped and the mountain began. The ground got steeper and steeper, meaning far going uphill. And then there was no doubt that they were heading up the mountain. Stanley could no longer see Big Thumb. The slope of the mountain was in the way. It became too steep to go straight up. Instead, they zigzagged back and forth, increasing their altitude by small increments every time they changed directions. Patches of weeds dotted the mountainside. They walked from one patch to another, using the weeds as footholds. As they got higher, the weeds got thicker. Many had thorns, and they had to be careful walking through them. Ding, ding, ding. What is dinging in your brain right now, students? Where there are weeds, there is water, right? Nothing grew, remember? In Camp Green Lake, in the dried lake, nothing. But now, weeds, they're passing weeds. Where there are weeds, there has to be water. We are going to stop with that positive thought and wish Stanley and Zero well until tomorrow. Tomorrow, I have a very special pet that I'm going to introduce to you. Until then, guys, do some exercise, clean your rooms, walk your dogs, read a book. I am checking extra math every day to see who's logging in. I'm checking iReady, and I'm also checking AR for points. You guys should be able to earn a lot of points during the break. Okay? I miss everybody, all your little faces, and till tomorrow, take care and wash your hands.
Thanks for watching.